Everybody. Welcome to a special episode. I wouldn't quite call it an emergency podcast, but an unexpected podcast. Today, I am Brian Nimhauser. You can find me on all the places: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, at Hawk Blogger. And I just got back from the VMAC after having the Mike McDonald press conference, as well as talking to Cooper Kupp, going into the Seahawks locker room. And there's quite a bit of injury news to catch everybody up on. I think pretty substantial injury news for both the Seahawks and the Commanders. So I thought it would be best to just come on here and share it with all of you as soon as I could. Some of this is going to have impacts just on this game. Some of it's going to have impact potentially beyond that. So I'll tell you what I know, and I'll also tell you what I don't know. And if you guys have heard something else, feel free to drop it in chat. Make sure you give the show a like and click subscribe. Always appreciate that. Okay, so let's start with the Seahawks news, since this is a Seahawks pod. The Seahawks, the big news of the day is that Mike McDonald said Julian Love had a setback related to his hamstring last week, and his availability for this week is, quote, in jeopardy. I also asked him if IR was a possibility for him, and his answer was that's something that is in consideration. So we're going to talk about the other injury news as well, but that's a pretty big one because not only is Julian Love a huge part of the secondary, and the team's been waiting to get him back out there, but if he is going to go on IR, that will be 4 games, including this one. And I don't believe it could be retroactive. So it would be this one and then the next 3 after. And if you look at who the Seahawks have coming up, the Cardinals at home, at the Rams, at the Titans, and then that would probably be the 4th game, depending on if he is able to come off IR after those 4 weeks, if he goes on IR, which is still not a certain thing at this point. But he would miss some pretty big games, especially the game against the Rams, where his ability to play that position and safety would be pretty critical. All right, so Julian Love seems very unlikely to play this week. We will not know necessarily about IR for a little while longer. I will talk more about that in a little bit. The other, I would say, big news for the Seahawks, Derick Young. He is also a potential IR candidate. So if you did not see, the Seahawks did bring up in Velus Jones, who is a kick returner. That has been one of Derick Young's jobs. That was a little bit of a concern when he was signed to the practice squad today, and the implications that would have for Derick Young, who's had a terrific season, both as a returner in the kick return game, but also as a receiver and just a player overall. And so if he's going to go on IR, that wouldn't be great either. Clearly not quite as significant as Julian Love, but that's 2 players that have played a pretty big role for the Seahawks team that might be unavailable for at least the next 4 weeks. The injury for Derick Young is a hip issue. We don't know exactly what kind of injury that is beyond that it's related to his hip. So we'll keep an eye out on that. In the good news category, if you're looking and desiring some of that, Devon Witherspoon, Derick Hall, Robbie Ouzts, all are expected to practice fully today. And, the fact that we didn't know if Devon Witherspoon practiced on Monday, obviously I told everyone that could not be sure whether or not he was going to be, he doesn't usually come out before practices, so that's not abnormal. But in any event, good news there that Witherspoon and Derick Hall and Robbie Ouzts are expected to be on the practice field today. Also, I asked Coach McDonald if this is just Ouzts practicing with an eye on potentially being available next week, or whether this week's game is that he has potential to be ready for this week. And he said, oh, he's practicing with the potential to be ready this week. So we weren't sure after Robbie Ouzts has been on IR for a little while, but it seems like all systems go as long as he makes it through the week. The expectation probably is that Robbie Ouzts will play this Sunday. So good news there. Good news with Derick Hall. Good news with Devon Witherspoon. Pretty bad news with Julian Love and Derick Young, but especially with Julian Love. On the other side, so, there was news not just about the Seahawks, there is news about the Commanders. Star receiver Terry McLaurin, who they just got back. They just got back after Terry McLaurin had missed 4 games, and he scored their only touchdown against Kansas City. He will be out for this game against the Seahawks with a quad injury. I'm not sure if it's a re-injury of the same quad that he had before. The Commanders are saying they don't think it's a long-term thing, but he is out officially for this game. So that's huge news for this contest because as I went through and first look, he has been by far their best weapon, especially on the outside. They do have Deebo Samuel still, and they do have, Zach Ertz and stuff like that. It's not the same. It is not the same as scary Terry McLaurin. So that is big news on their side. The other aspect from an injury standpoint, Laremy Tunsil, their great left tackle, and kicker Matt Gay, who has been their primary place kicker, will not practice today. And Dan Quinn said, quote, "We'll see where they are later this week." So he's leaving open the possibility with both of those guys, but at least right now, those guys are not practicing. If you're missing Laremy Tunsil and Terry McLaurin, yikes. That's going to be a tough go of it for the Commanders. There is more injury news. You can see why I went live because there's just too much to leave till tomorrow. It is expected that Jayden Daniels will practice in full all week. So it is, unless there is a setback of some sort, Jayden Daniels will be the quarterback in this game for the Commanders against the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. So lots and lots and lots of stuff. Let me summarize it again if you're just joining now. Julian Love, Derick Young, very unlikely to play this week. Julian Love has had a setback in his hamstring injury. Both Julian Love and Derick Young may go on IR. We are not certain of that. We also, if they go on IR, are not certain if that is going to be designated to return, or is this a season-ending thing for either player? I'm not saying we have any indication it would be season-ending, but we do not know yet what the severity is. Robbie Ouzts, Devon Witherspoon, and Derick Hall all are practicing or expected to practice today. Robbie Ouzts is expected to potentially be available to play this week. So this is not just because his practice window just opened, does not mean that he is going to need a few weeks to get back into the swing of things. They're practicing him this week with the expectation that he could play. On the Commanders side, Terry McLaurin, their star receiver, is out with a quad injury. Jayden Daniels appears to be in, or the expectation is that he will practice fully all week. Laremy Tunsil, their best offensive lineman and their starting left tackle, did not or is not expected to practice today, and they're not sure if he's going to be available. They'll have to check in later this week. Similarly, their place kicker, Matt Gay, also not practicing today with a back injury that kept him out of the Chiefs game, but we will find out whether or not he is available later. Beyond that, I think those are all the injury notes related to this game. Lots and lots and lots of stuff going on there. So let's talk a little bit about this Julian Love thing. Let me blow my nose first. So hold 1 second. Okay. So Mike McDonald said he had a setback last week. Now, I assume that means it was last week during the bye that most likely Julian Love was probably doing some sort of rehab and probably trying to cut it loose and seeing it, testing out the hamstring, and there was an issue. Now, some of the guys in the media room had different interpretations. Like there are folks that thought that could have meant for Mike McDonald that anything before the game week starts, which is Wednesday, is last week. So it could have happened on Monday's practice. I'm not sure it really matters. What matters is that your, key leader in the secondary is going to be out for at least this game. And it's possible that he will be out for 4 weeks. We do not know yet. So I want to repeat, we do not know yet if he's going to go on IR. We do know that it's, quote, under consideration. The Derick Young thing seems far more likely to be an issue. Sorry, we're going to have my dog Finn barking in a second because some package is getting delivered. So the fact that I think it's more likely Derick Young is going on IR than Julian Love is because they signed another kick returner to be on the practice squad. That seems to be a move before the move, but can't say for sure. And so, all right, so that seems to be a pretty good indicator that they think they're going to be without their primary kick returner in Derick Young for a little while. And we'll see. You know, it's not the end of the world, but it's not great. The Julian Love stuff, you know, it just depends on what their situation is. Now, they did open the practice window for Christian Haynes, the guard for the Seahawks, and Mike Macdonald was pretty clear that Christian Haynes is expected to come in as a backup, that there's no expectations that he is going to rotate in with Anthony Bradford or that, you know, there's any competition there. I mean, there's always competition, but that's kind of the state of things with the guards spot. I don't know that Christian Haynes is going to be activated this week officially and need a roster spot. I do think Robbie Ouzts will need a roster spot, which is why I think it's very likely that one of the two guys, either Julian Love or Derick Young, are going to go on IR. Most likely it's going to be Derick Young. Now, do they need another roster spot? That is one of the questions. And also, do they think that Julian Love has a chance to be available before the 4-week window? They've had some bad luck with that so far this season in not putting guys on IR and then not being able to, you know, have them play or available. This is a good example with Julian Love. So they may do it anyway. And if they do, then, you know, it would open up a roster spot. They could bring someone off the practice squad onto the 53. It wouldn't necessarily be a safety, but it could be a guy like Jerick Reed. That would make some sense. And I'm going to pull up the Seahawks roster right now. And I believe, if I'm right, Jerick Reed is still on the practice squad. He is. And so he's been elevated a number of times. I think he might be out of elevations. So it could make a lot of sense for the Seahawks to say, look, we need to bring either Shaquille Griffin, maybe, probably not, because I think the cornerback room is getting healthier. You could see Jerick Reed get elevated to the 53-man roster and play. So that's probably a likely scenario. Another thing to kind of keep an eye on with the kick return stuff is even though the Seahawks signed Velus Jones, they do have Courtney Jackson, who's been on their roster all regular season. They signed him off of the Broncos. He's been on the practice squad. He is primarily a returner. He's a little bit more of a punt returner than a kick returner, but I do wonder if they're going to maybe consider him as a kick returner as well. We'll see what happens between him and Velus Jones. I don't know. I'm looking right now. I don't know if there's anyone else that I think is an obvious person to elevate off the practice squad. Maybe Cody White, who's been on the 53-man at a time and has done some kick returning, also a special teams guy. But if I had to bet, they would probably look to have what they've been doing with Julian Love out, which is have Jerick Reed available, because if, let's say, something happens to Ty Okada or to Kobe Bryant, I think you're going to want to have Jerick Reed available to sub in there in the secondary. So kind of a mess, kind of unfortunate. I think a lot of us were really looking forward to seeing Julian Love and Devon Witherspoon and Nicky Manwari and Tariq Woolen, you know, and Josh Jobe and Kobe Bryant all available, because those guys have only played 4 snaps together all season. Unfortunately, that number is going to remain for the foreseeable future. Now, maybe this sets up for a triumphant reunion toward the end of the season where they get all healthy and really make a big run. I think there's some positive in the fact that you're going to have continuity with guys like Ty Okada did have his best game of the season, last one against the Texans. He's getting more practice time. He's getting more familiar with the system, and the guys are getting more familiar with him. Maybe it'll all just work out. So far, they've been able to do that. You certainly don't love that Rams matchup without Julian Love. He's a pretty key part of that whole defense. So it is what it is. They're going to roll with what they got. Those are the big pieces of news. I'm going to check and see. I see there's a question about, is there a Real Hawk Talk tonight? There is not. So we are moving Real Hawk Talk to Thursday night this week, tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So Evan Hill, Jeff Simmons, and I will be on tomorrow at 5. So no Real Hawk Talk tonight. That's part of why I wanted to come on here and give you guys this update and give you a little context for why this is big news and why there's a lot going on. I'm looking to see other things related to this, if there's any questions or updates that I missed. There's people wondering, Mark asks, maybe they trade for Quandre Diggs. Like, I don't think so. Maybe it increases the odds, but I think that they're happy with the guys that they've got. I don't think they think it's an emergency, and I think I'm assuming that they expect to get Julian Love back. If he was out for the year, then yes, I do think a trade could be something that they would consider. As of right now, we don't know that that's the case. Keep in mind, George Kittle tore his hamstring off the bone in week 1. And if we look at how many weeks he was out, not every person is the same. But he missed, well, that's not the best way to see it. Let's look at it this way. So George Kittle missed, he came back for the Atlanta game for San Francisco. So he missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He missed 5 weeks. And I think they had a bye in there. No, their bye is later. So he missed 5 weeks. If Julian Love, that's about as serious of a hamstring injury as you can have, and he came back, I don't think the Seahawks have to really worry about Julian Love being out for the season. But I really don't know, because I don't have the information about how he was injured and what's going on. So that's that. I see folks. Some folks are pretty discouraged. I get it. I know it's frustrating. I do think that, honestly, if you're just looking at this week, I'd still much rather be the Seahawks than be the Commanders. Terry McLaurin's a pretty big loss. And if they also are without Laremy Tunsil, is it a really, really tough matchup for them? I'm curious. I'm going to take a look real quick to see if Vegas odds have moved at all. Now, they're not necessarily real time where I'm looking at them, but right now, it's still between 3 and 3.5 in favor of the Seahawks, at least for what I'm seeing. So far, no real movement. Other than that, I'll do a quick check before I log off, but I do not believe there's any other big news on the day coming either from the Seahawks or elsewhere that is interesting to Seahawks fans. Let me take a quick look before one other place just to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that is it. So, not terrific news for the Seahawks. Not the worst news for the Seahawks. I think the Devon Witherspoon news is pretty good. The Robbie Ouzts news is pretty good. But a rough setback for Julian Love. All right, folks. Someone wanted me to repeat my assessment of Haynes. So Christian Haynes. So a couple things there. it was said, Mike McDonald was asked if they would consider rotating Christian Haynes once he's back, or if there's going to be some sort of competition there, opportunity. I'll play the sound for you another time, but the answer was like Anthony Bradford and Gray Zabel won the competition at guard in training camp. And so Christian Haynes will be coming back in that role as a backup. And it seemed like, I think all of us in the room interpreted it the same way, which was, no, he's not coming back to be a starter or push Anthony Bradford. For those that want that answer didn't help increase your confidence it's going to happen, or it shouldn't. And my own personal evaluation, which frankly I think a lot of folks share, is Christian Haynes was given an opportunity last year to rotate in. And granted, Ray Roberts and other folks have said that did not do him that was a disservice to him as a rookie to have that and not be able to get any kind of continuity or rhythm. I think Ray's probably right. At the same time, he didn't do anything to grab that job. And he had opportunities to do that multiple times. He didn't do it. That was with an entirely different offensive coaching staff. Then you get back this year with a new coaching staff running a wide zone scheme, which is what Christian Haynes ran in college and exactly the scheme that he stood out in. And with new coaches, including, you're talking about Clint Kubiak, John Benton, Rick Dennison, Justin Outen. Like, there's a lot of new eyes on that position. They came in with Christian Haynes as the starter. OTAs, mini camp, all through, he was running with the ones, and Anthony Bradford was the backup. Into training camp, it started out that way. Eventually, partway through training camp, it flipped, and it never flipped back. So my read there, having watched all of those practices, was that he did nothing to really establish himself as something that, is going to add significant value either as a pass protector or as a run blocker. Anthony Bradford actually looked like a better pass protector, if you can believe it, in those practices. He also was very clearly a better run blocker in those practices. So imagine, whatever you think of Anthony Bradford, imagine someone who was less impressive during practice than him. Coaches all saw that, and they gave him every friggin' chance. I think folks that are trying to say that he should come back and start, I get it. I get that you're frustrated with what you're seeing from Anthony Bradford, but consider that you have not seen what I and all the coaches and other reporters have seen in those practices from Christian Haynes. So I think that's where things stand. It doesn't mean that there's no chance he'll ever push. Maybe he'll come back and be a different player, and who knows? Maybe he'll get another chance due to injury or something else, and he'll start shining. All those things are possible. But no, I do not believe that it is likely that Christian Haynes is going to immediately push for playing time. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks slow play his availability to come off of IR. He's just opened his practice window, just like Robbie Ouzts. The difference is I think they might take the 21 days with Christian Haynes before they make a final decision on what to do with him. Robbie Ouzts, I think they're going to get him back out there as soon as he shows he's ready. So that's the state of things here. And yeah, I understand. Everybody's very upset that Anthony Bradford's still in there. Yeah, I've said my piece a million times on that. I understand why people want and should expect better performance at right guard. I also understand why the coaches are making the decisions that they're making. And if they can make an improvement via trade, great. Seems unlikely that that's going to be possible. Otherwise, if you're looking for some prayer, it would be that Bryce Cabledew or Mason Richmond has really stood out along the way when we have not been able to watch practices, and that John Benton will decide that one of those guys should get in there over Anthony Bradford. I'll just continue to say, I watched J.R. Sweezy. I watched James Carpenter. I watched those guys get absolutely blown by in pass protection during the Super Bowl season. And that line won a Super Bowl. So Yes, Anthony Bradford's got very, very clear issues that he's got to try to correct, especially in pass protection. And yes, I've heard Dan Jeremiah's take, which was great to hear on Brock and Salk yesterday after he watched some Anthony Bradford tape and some Gray Zabel tape. There's some rough reps out there, no doubt. I also think that you got to play your best options. And as of right now, believe it or not, I think he's probably their best option. And believe it or not, this is the best pass protecting offensive line the Seahawks have had almost ever, at least from a sack perspective. No, I don't believe this is a better pass protecting offensive line than the 2005 squad or stuff like that. But statistically, they're doing pretty well, and they're making explosive plays. It's not as broken as everybody might feel like it is. It's just a place where they could get better. So I see the super chat from OEL. Do you think John Schneider goes after right guard at the deadline? I've talked about this as well. Maybe. I think he'll definitely be making calls about those positions. I think this will be the first time that any team would have traded a quality guard during the deadline. It just doesn't happen. It rarely happens. So I would not hold out a lot of hope, but that's the state of things. So my advice, which nobody's going to take, is root like hell for Anthony Bradford to, at 24 years old, to find his footing, make some improvements, get better, and solidify the group. That is probably your most realistic opportunity to improve this offensive line. All right, everybody, that'll do it for me. I got other stuff going on that I got to get to, but appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you give a like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. I've been reading those lately, and it's been making my mornings as I open up. I think I got a couple of new ones. Says, this man is literally all you need for Seahawks coverage. Just a matter of time until the Seahawks literally hire him to be on their channel. I'll tell you this. I don't want to be hired by the Seahawks. I don't want to necessarily be hired by anybody. It's really nice being my own boss, deciding when I'm going to go live, what I'm going to cover, what I'm going to ask, when I'm going to take days off, all that. So I appreciate that. Is a really, really nice review from Jada Killa to God. And then Haynes World says the best podcast covering Seahawks football. That's really nice. Says, I love the Seahawks and I love Brian's analysis and commentary on everything Seahawks. The recent podcast on comparing previous Seahawks teams through the 50-year history that started the season 5-2 was brilliant. Wow, nice. I don't normally follow the football season until the first game, but listening to Hawk Blogger podcast during the draft, through OTAs and training camp, to the interviews with the rookies, he has totally engaged me like never before. I, all caps, love this team. And I love Hawk Bloggers podcast. Keep up the great work, Brian. Thank you from Virginia. Go Hawks. Wow. Haynes World, man. That's really nice. I hadn't read that one. That is really nice. So yeah, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Let me continue to try to rub it in Brock and Salk's face that we have a 4.7. Let's get to 4.8. That would be awesome. Wherever you listen to your podcast. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back tomorrow with more Hawk Blogger Mornings.